The following episode of The Kingdom of Isolation contains footage from the film being discussed. The footage is used solely for the purposes of education, commentary, and criticism under fair use. Please support the animators by watching this film on Disney Plus or home media where available. This episode also contains spoilers throughout. Hello, my fellow Disney fans, and welcome to the Kingdom of Isolation. When times of trouble, why not celebrate the magic of Disney? And today, we're paddling downstream into the uncharted territory of Pocahontas 2: Journey to a New World, released direct-to-video in 1998. So, grab your compass, brace yourself for adventure, because this ain't the Powhatan village you remember. The winds have shifted and Pocahontas is setting sail for England, where new faces, old prejudices, and unexpected choices await our legendary hero. Is this sequel a bold leap into a brave new world, or does this leave us yearning for the colours of the wind we left behind? We'll dig into the film's themes of identity and adaptation, revisit the legacy of the original, and ask the hard questions. How does Pocahontas' journey across the Atlantic measure up to her iconic roots? And what do we make of the way the story reimagines her fate? So gather around the fire as we explore lost legends, questionable love triangles, and the curious place this sequel holds in Disney's animated canon. That being said, let's set sail.
John Smith, in the name of the king, you are under arrest for treason in Jamestown.
Well, that's an abrupt way to start, and also rude. Mercifully, this isn't Mel Gibson voicing John Smith this time around, but you still can't use a British accent for him? Unacceptable! That being said, it's Mel's brother, Donald, who isn't a much better choice. We all know how problematic Mel Gibson is these days, and less said about it, the better. It's not long before the quips start flying as the guards chase John down for supposedly committing treason in Jamestown. Sounds like these guards didn't pay attention to the events of the first film. Unless Ratcliffe, voiced again by the late David Aldrich Stars, the absolute irredeemable scum, convincing King James, voiced by Jim Cummings, that John is the one that committed treason, and says he'd prefer to see him hanged. That was worse than underwhelming. John's now supposedly dead after falling into the river, and Ratcliffe, emphasis on rat, grovels at King James's feet, claiming he tried to save John. Why does anyone believe him to begin with? Again, they did not pay attention to the events of the original. Why did I think this was a great idea?
I wanted him alive!
You dumbass!
Ratcliffe then convinces the king to go to war with the Native Americans.
Meanwhile, thousands of miles away,
Pocahontas and Nakoma have a snowball fight while Percy and Miko are tucking into some berries. The fun comes to a halt when Pocahontas, voiced again by Irene Bedard, finds the compass from the first film with John Smith's name engraved on the back.
I know you are right. It's just hard to say goodbye.
This tender moment can't be allowed any time before the inappropriately timed comedy comes into play. Seriously, why? Let's face it, it was inevitable I was going to come across a direct-to-video sequel that I already dislike. I mean, even as a kid, I just had no interest in watching this at all. No interest whatsoever. I will give the film this. The film score is okay at best. Lenny Nyhouse provided the film score here and was best known for his work in jazz. Not exactly the best choice for a film score, if you ask me. And hey, at least he got to work with Clint Eastwood throughout his career before passing away just days before he would have turned 91. And I'm talking Lenny. Lenny passing away just before he turned 91. Just in case anyone gets confused. The songs are written by Larry Grossman and Marty Panzer. The latter would go on to be involved in the much more beloved Simba's Pride, which will be the next episode. Oh, yes, Nakoma. She's voiced by Michelle St. John, who for some reason is uncredited. Really bizarre given the fact that she's reprising the role here. Judy Kuhn is back as the singing voice for Pocahontas and still sounds great. The first of, say it with me, 5 songs written for the film. Where do I go from here? This has the same issues that plague just around the riverbed. It feels too much like Oscar bait, which I brought up previously on the show. A ship arrives with John Rolfe on board, voiced by Rose Dawson's ex-fiancé Billy Zane. Yes, that Billy Zane who was in Titanic the year before. Yikes. What a downgrade in terms of roles. Yeesh. He was also in Back to the Future 2 as well.
The encounter could create a time paradox, the results of which could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the very fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe. Granted, that's a worst-case scenario.
Just an excuse to use that gag.
Filthy barbarian.
Okay. You didn't have to keep the racial prejudice from the first film. Seriously, the racism was already problematic in the original. You're not helping your case here, Pocahontas 2!
Wait!
Stand down! Husku.
Again, you're not helping your case for why this needed to be made, Disney. In other words, it didn't need to be made. Didn't warrant being made, but because direct-to-video sequels were the thing, and they were making a lot of money. John tries to smooth things over with Pocahontas, failing spectacularly. His derogatory remark towards her doesn't exactly help.
Women.
John, it's 2025. You cannot be making those sort of comments, whether it's behind her back or otherwise. Or in the case of social media today, the toxic cesspool of so-called fans who refuse to support or respect the Lionesses. You all know exactly who you are, and you will all are all being called out here. You can't be proud of your country winning an international tournament back to back just because it's the women. That means you do not deserve to be a fan of this sport. You either accept the women's game will continue to grow, or you go and watch something else. And I know there's going to be people out there, oh, no one cares, no one watches, Team is big this race. One, get some new material instead of using the same drawstring puppet style responses. Number 2, we get it. Under 15 boys beat the Swiss women's team. We get it. Not the women's fault they were banned from playing football for so long. And 3, this is aimed solely to those that say no one watches and no one cares. 34,000 people filling the stadium in the final of the Euros in Switzerland. 650,000 attending throughout the entire tournament. And that is including the 34,000 that were at the final. 65,000 people lining the streets of London to celebrate with the Lionesses. And finally, 16 million people watching the final. So, checks notes. Nearly 17 million people say otherwise. Oh, and just one more thing. What have the men won? What have the men's England teams won since 1966? Absolutely nothing. choking back-to-back Euros finals, one of them on penalties. Ha, ha, ha. Haven't heard that one before. It's an England men's tradition to choke on penalties. And never made it to a World Cup final since 1966. The women, on the other hand, 2 Arnold Clark Cups, Team GB qualifying for the Tokyo Olympics, 2 European Championships, one of them on penalties against the world champions, Spain. Vindication for Down Under. What else? Oh, yes. Reaching said World Cup final against Spain, losing out 1-0, and I am still heartbroken over that particular day. And finally, winning the first ever women's finalissima against Brazil on penalties. Which they also won the finalissima on my birthday that year, no less. Thank you, Chloe Kelly. 5 trophies in the last 4 years, while the men have won nothing since 1966. Absolutely diddly squat. What does that tell you? You want football to come home? It's coming in. Football's coming home. You want football to come home? Use the Lionesses, because at least they get the job done.
Thank you!
Anyway, back to this train wreck. John goes to meet Pocahontas and Chief Powhatan, voiced again by Russell Means. John has clearly backed himself into a corner when he tries to backtrack on gifting his horse to Pocahontas. Are we already at IQ levels of the useless Canadian in Formula One? That being 0? If not, we're already pretty close.
Someone must go.
You speak with the tongue of a pale one. You belong with them. Perhaps you should go.
Yep, there it is. Turning against your own people. We've officially hit useless Canadian IQ levels. Oh, boy. Pocahontas goes to speak to Grandmother Willow, voiced again by Linda Hunt, and something feels off about how she's animated this time around.
Is that my Pocahontas?
The way she was animated in the first film was much better. I know this is a sequel with a much lower budget, but at least try to make the animation look somewhat tolerable. Here, it just feels like her face was drawn onto the tree. In the first film, it was listen with your heart. Now it's listen to your heart and listen to the spirit within, which doesn't help. Willow then leaves, quite rudely, not exactly helping much at the moment. What was the point of that? Pocahontas travels to England with John and her bodyguard, nicknamed Ooty, who John tries to speak to. Again, what was the point? Regardless, off to England we go. I'm not enjoying the fact that the animation is very inconsistent, and the fact that Percy, Flit, and Miko are all on the ship as well, even after Pocahontas said they shouldn't be there. But we've got to have the comedy relief somehow, and even then it's not funny. They finally arrive in England, well, London specifically. In real life, John Rolfe came to America in 1610 to give English settlers tobacco in Virginia by making a tobacco plantation after he lost his first wife, Sarah Hacker, in Bermuda. 3 guesses why. In this film, Rolfe is sent to Virginia by King James and Queen Anne to accompany Chief Powhatan to London. What a Day in London is the next song, and it just reeks of trying to copy Belle from Beauty and the Beast. The song Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Pocahontas somehow decides to leave the carriage and explore London.
Look up!
Is that the gallop in the tray?
See what I mean about the song copying Belle? Miko and Percy continue their never-ending squabbles. Then we see Ratcliffe make his appearance. Unsurprisingly, Beauty and Pocahontas are
Absolutely livid.
that this scum decided to make an appearance. His motivations are clearly changed. Ever heard of obsession? Clearly not. Obsesses with the non-existing gold and claiming Jamestown for James. John tries to straighten things out with the king and accommodates Pocahontas to stay with Mrs. Leroy Jenkins, voiced by Gene Stapleton, best known for All in the Family. In true English fashion, Mrs. Jenkins puts on some tea. 2 sugars, no milk, thanks. Oh, I had to get my tea order in as well somehow. And this is where we get an Easter egg to involving Mrs. Potts. The real John Rolfe did not have a female housekeeper at all. His mother and siblings resided in Heacham. After Pocahontas died, John gave his son Thomas to Sir Lewis Stukely, who later transferred the wardship to John's brother, Henry Rolfe. John heads to see King James alone, while Pocahontas and Beauty stay at home. James invites Pocahontas to the ball with a simple goal.
Rolfe, you will bring her to the hunt ball. Prove to me she is as civilized as you claim, and I will stop my armada. If not, the armada sails.
Jim traded voicing Winnie the Pooh for voicing this absolute idiot. Also, Ratcliffe, you cannot directly take a king in chess. You have to surround it so that it cannot move out of check. Hence, the checkmate. I actually lost it. Coincidentally enough, I actually played a game of chess with a friend earlier tonight, and yeah, I lost. But I didn't give him the satisfaction of putting me into checkmate, so I knew I was going to be in checkmate regardless, so I just conceded. Mrs. Jenkins helps Pocahontas become accustomed to the English ways in song form. Oh boy. Wait till he sees you. You couldn't come up with a better title than that? And this also sounds like I Feel Pretty in some areas. Actually, talking of which. Hello, West Side Story. I'd like to file a lawsuit against Pocahontas 2 for copyright infringement. $30,000 minus legal fees? Excellent. See you in court on Monday. She put on a new necklace to fit in and is pretty much set for the ball.
I want to make sure nothing goes right.
You what?
Queen Anne, voiced by Finola Hughes, who's been part of Staying Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, All My Children, and General Hospital, welcomes Pocahontas to England. The ball is officially underway, and the animation feels off again, which is not going to help the scores. Ratcliffe steals Pocahontas from John for a dance. Ratcliffe, I hope you get hanged. Next song, Things Are Not What They Appear, and each song somehow gets worse and worse throughout the film. It started like mid at best, and it immediately just goes boom through the floor. Even the animation throughout the song is a combination of horrendous and unsettling. How on earth is everyone so easily convinced by Ratcliffe? How? Most of the bear sounds are real, but one loud sound during the bear baiting sequence was actually an elephant, which is where we're at. This leaves Pocahontas very unsettled, causing her to snap.
Sit down at once, and we will overlook the savage behavior.
Your behavior is savage. You and your people are the barbarians.
What?
About time someone called these idiots out! She ends up being seized and held in the Tower of London. Pocahontas and her bodyguard, Utamatumakin, were never actually imprisoned in the Tower of London. In real life, she visited George Percy's brother, Henry Percy, the 9th Earl of Northumberland, at that place. and he mended her earrings for her. At no point have earrings ever been mentioned in this film. In real life, John Rolfe met Pocahontas during her captivity under Sir Thomas Dale and conversion to Christianity through Reverend Alexander Whitaker in July of 1613 in the settlement of Henricus. John makes his way to the tower, finds Pocahontas, and reveals that John Smith is dead. The trio escape, locking the guards in her cell, and escape the tower. Smith reveals he had to remain hidden so people could believe he was dead. A former vicar of Wymondham Abbey in Norfolk, the Reverend Richard Buck, officiated at the marriage of John Rolfe to Pocahontas in 1614. As a result, a plaque acknowledging this event is displayed in the abbey. The final song of the film, Between Two Worlds. It feels really cliched, even by Disney sequel standards. Plan of action in place, now to enact it. But what was the plan? Was it to take Pete's car, go to Mum's, go in, kill Phil, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, wait for us to blow over? It was basically to out Ratcliffe as the traitor. The shock from everyone says it all when they see John Smith alive and well. Problem is, Ratcliffe has already left. How are they going to catch him now? Oh, like that, I guess. The rest of Pocahontas' crew joins them on Ratcliffe's ship and removes the rest of his crew. Smith defeats Ratcliffe, heading back to port where King James arrests Ratcliffe for his crimes. Again, I want him hanged! Smith is pardoned, given a ship, tries to convince Pocahontas to journey with him, only for her to stay with Rolfe and get married to him instead. She does part ways with Smith as friends, however, which feels bittersweet. She then travels to Jamestown, where she lives with Rolfe, while UT stays in London, and the couple share a kiss as they sail off into the sunset. This is the first time I can genuinely say that one of these films is a dud. And it's very rare that I do that. So here we go. On to the scores. Story. It's a harsh verdict, but one that feels earned with a 3 out of 10. The plot stumbles between historical inaccuracies and uninspired musical numbers, never quite committing to emotional depth or coherent storytelling. While there are glimmers of charm, often buried by bewildering choices, the narrative ultimately fails to rise above mediocrity. The result is a story that limps across the finish line, deserving little more than the 3 out of 10 for its efforts. Characters fare no better, clocking in at a lackluster 3 out of 10 as well. With personalities flattened by feeble dialogue and erratic motivations, the cast stumbles through the narrative while players uncertain of their roles. Even the protagonists, who ought to inspire empathy or intrigue, are rendered curiously inert, more cardboard cutouts than living, breathing individuals. Villains twirl their metaphorical moustaches with predictable malice, and supporting characters flicker in and out, never quite leaving a mark. Ultimately, the ensemble is a wasted opportunity, failing to animate the story beyond its most basic plot points. The visuals barely fare better, garnering a meager 3.5 out of 10. Actually, scratch that. They also get a 3. The animation, while serviceable, is devoid of the lush artistry or inventive flair that might have redeemed the film's shortcomings elsewhere. Colors are muted, backgrounds uninspired, and the characters' designs lack the distinctiveness that once made Disney's hand-drawn worlds shimmer with life. There are occasional flashes of competence, but they are fleeting, swallowed up by a general sense of mediocrity that pervades the screen. In short, the visual presentation is passable at best and uninspired at worst, leaving little to linger in the memory once the credits roll. The soundtrack limps in with a meager 4 out of 10. It's a collection of tunes that never quite manage to stir the soul or linger in the mind, often falling back on derivative melodies and forgettable lyrics. There are moments where the score hints at emotional resonance, yet these are fleeting, drowned out by uninspired orchestration and bland vocal performances. Instead of uplifting or deepening the experience, the music merely fills space, often offering neither the soaring spirit nor the memorable refrains that hallmark Disney's best. The result is a soundtrack that feels as tired as the story it accompanies, serviceable, but far from stirring. And so we arrive at the film's most damning attribute: its utter lack of legacy. To call this rushed would be an understatement, taking only 2 years to make, and it shows. A miserable 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, Joe Layden of Variety magazine calling the film bland and formulaic. And I agree. I can't even justify saying anything positive about this section of the scores. This is a terrible sequel to a very Oscar bait film, and the fact they tried to recreate that here did not do any favors at all. Scoring a resounding 0, it leaves no imprint on the cultural consciousness, no spark of inspiration for future storytellers, nor even a fleeting moment worthy of nostalgic recall. It is a film destined for obscurity, eclipsed by its predecessors, and forgotten by audiences soon after the credits fade. Where other entries in the canon have fostered memories and invoked reverence, this one generates only indifference. A cautionary footnote rather than a celebrated chapter in animation history. A score of 26% is perhaps the most telling indictment of all. How do you score worse in the Kingdom of Isolation than with the critics? How? This is how. It speaks not just to a catalogue of missed opportunities, but to a deeper malaise, a creative inertia that no amount of technical polish or marketing bravado can disguise. Such a rating places the film among the most forgettable entries in recent memory, marking it as a cautionary tale for future endeavors that mistake spectacle for substance, or nostalgia for genuine innovation. In the end, 26% is more than a number. It is a verdict, a reflection of audience and critical disappointment, and an emblem of what happens when ambition falters and inspiration fails to ignite. Without question, avoid this disaster of a sequel. When the original film scores triple what you can, you've got problems. Again, avoid this one at all costs. Put it alongside Lightyear, most of the package film era, Home on the Range, and especially Chicken Little. The first sequel disaster, but definitely not the last. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Kingdom of Isolation. looking at Pocahontas 2 Journey to a New World. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the thumbs up. And if you want to be part of the Kingdom of Isolation yourself, hit the subscribe button down at the bottom. Click the bell, turn on notifications so you don't miss when an episode goes live. Also, check out my passes page as well, where you'll get to see uncut episodes of the Kingdom of Isolation as well. The next episode, as I mentioned earlier, oh boy, much more beloved and a far more worthy sequel than this abomination. We're going to be heading back to Pride Rock. But until then, make each moment count, and I'll see you guys next time in the Kingdom of Isolation.